In 1980, I would celebrate my 10th birthday. And that same year, arcades and video games would have a huge impact on my life. When you think of the greatest games of 1980, naturally everyone's mind immediately goes to the titans like Pac-Man. And I have to give credit where credit is due. Pac-Man wasn't just a game, it was also considered to have the first ever video game character or mascot. In 1980 and 81, Pac-Man fever took the world by storm. I can vividly remember vacationing down at Navarro Beach, Florida with my family, and we had friends also just during the summers. We had dinner at a large beachside Holiday Inn that was a few miles down the road from our condo. The large, sprawling hotel complex had an indoor heated pool, movie theater, and a nice-sized arcade. It was in that very arcade where I witnessed Pac-Man fever take hold of people. Even the grown-up moms who could care less about video games fell in love with this cute little yellow muncher and his colorful pursuing adversaries. That was an amazing year for gaming and for video gaming arcades. Now, I always thought Pac-Man was cool and all, but to me, personally, there were some other games from that same year that I seemed to enjoy a lot more. These other games were the classics that for some of us really defined the golden age of gaming and really helped us fall in love with our local arcades. They were pushing boundaries and giving you experiences that you just hadn't seen or felt before then. So today we're skipping the most obvious choice of Pac-Man to dig into my personal top 5 arcade favorites of 1980. Coming in at number 5, we have Rally X, released by Namco. Rally X is a game that was tragically overshadowed by another massive hit from Namco in 1980. While practically everyone was getting hooked on Pac-Man, I was often over at a different machine, dumping my quarters into the brilliant maze chase game Rally X. The game actually hit Japan first, but it arrived in the US in 1980 and felt years ahead of its time. In Rally X, you drive a blue Formula One car through this big scrolling maze trying to collect 10 yellow flags before your gas runs out. All the while you're being hunted by a squad of red enemy cars that are always on your tail. But here's the cool part. You had a small radar on the side of the screen showing your location, the enemies, and the red flags. It was one of the very first and best uses of a minimap in a video game. For me, 2 things made Rally X so brilliant and fun. The first was your secret weapon, the smoke screen. You could hit the button and leave a puff of smoke behind you, and any enemy car that hit it would spin out stunned. It cost you a bit of your precious fuel, which created this really cool risk-reward system in the game. Timing your smoke screen just right to cause a multi-car pileup was one of the most satisfying moves I'd ever experienced on an arcade game up until that point. The second game-changing feature was its sound. Rally X is credited as one of the very first arcade games to have continuous background music. Before this, most games just had sound effects and little jingles. Rally X had this catchy looping tune that played the whole time, perfectly setting the pace for the frantic chase. It was a commercial hit in Japan, but it never quite got the same love in North America. Namco even put out a slightly easier sequel in 1981 to address some complaints about the difficulty. For me though, the original Rally X is a design masterpiece, mixing strategy, racing, and chase gameplay into something that was truly ahead of its time. Coming in at number 4, we have Berserk by Stern Electronics. Berserk was a game that wasn't just fun, it was actively hostile. It was even a little intimidating sometimes. Released in late 1980, this game created an atmosphere of pure electronic dread that was unlike anything else in the arcade. The setup from designer Alan McNeil was simple. You're a little stick figure dude running through an endless series of single-screen mazes. Every room is filled with mindless laser-firing robots. Your job is to blast them all and get to the exit. You could be killed by getting shot, by touching a robot, by running into an electrified wall, or even by the shrapnel from a robot you just blew up. This game was absolutely brutal. But the thing that truly set Berserk apart, and the reason it's on this list, was its revolutionary use of speech synthesis. For the first time ever, the game actually talked to you. In this creepy robotic voice, it would relentlessly taunt you. Hearing an arcade cabinet speak was completely mind-blowing in 1980. and it gave the game a personality that was both terrifying and magnetic. And then there was Evil Otto. If you hung around in one room for too long, this bouncing smiley face would appear. Otto was invincible. He could go through walls, and his only job was to destroy you. Nobody was safe, and if any robots got in his path, they were instantly vaporized as well. The slow, rhythmic boing 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 sound he made as he got closer was the stuff of nightmares. It created this incredible layer of psychological horror, forcing you to keep moving and take risk. Does anybody remember how Otto would suddenly speed up after all the robots were eliminated? I do. Berserk wasn't just a test of your reflexes, it was a test of your nerve. For that perfect storm of high-stakes action, its oppressive atmosphere, and the unforgettable innovation of its taunting voice, Berserk is for me a game that deserves to be on this list.
Intruder alert, intruder alert. The humanoid. The intruder. The intruder must not escape.
And at number 3, we have Centipede by Atari. Now we have to put a little asterisk next to the year on this one. The game's copyright screen says 1980, but its wide release didn't happen until mid-1981. For me though, its whole vibe and creation are so tied to that creative explosion of 1980 that it absolutely earns a spot on this list. Co-designed by Donna Bailey and Ed Logg, Centipede was a shooter, but it felt totally different from everything else. Instead of aliens marching down in neat rows, you were fighting a giant segmented centipede as it snaked its way down the screen through a forest of mushrooms. Shoot a segment of the centipede and it splits into 2 smaller independent centipedes, leaving a new mushroom behind. This made the battlefield feel unpredictable and almost organic. The game was just a masterclass in controlled mayhem. Your little bug blaster at the bottom didn't move just left and right. You could also move up and down in a small area, giving you more freedom to position yourself. But the centipede wasn't the only thing you had to worry about. Fleas would drop down and leave more mushrooms, and spiders would bounce erratically across your turf, tempting you with big points but at a huge risk. Then you had the scorpion, worth 1,000 points if you can eliminate the scorpion, but the bastard starts poisoning the mushroom field and causes the centipede just to go crazy and come straight down. I mean, just when you think this game couldn't get crazy enough, the centipede is shooting straight down toward the bottom of the screen. It's really ingenious, what they came up with for this game. What makes Centipede a personal favorite is the glorious panic it still induces. You're not just shooting, you're managing an out-of-control garden of pests. Do you try to clear mushrooms to get clean shots, or leave them there to try to guide the centipede? Do you risk it all for that high-value spider, or just focus on the main threat? It was also one of the first games to attract a huge female audience, which proved its appeal went way beyond the typical arcade crowd. The frantic trackball-based gameplay and its vibrant, almost psychedelic look make it an unforgettable experience. At number 2, we have Battlezone by Atari. My number 2 pick is a game that felt like it was sent back from the future, Atari's Battlezone. Released in November of 1980, this wasn't just a game, it was an experience. Battlezone was a first-person tank simulator that used 3D vector graphics to create this stark, wireframe world that was unbelievably immersive. A lot of the cabinets even had this unique periscope viewer you could press your face against, which blocked out all the light and noise from the arcade and just pulled you right into the game. The gameplay was completely revolutionary. You used a dual joystick setup, one for the left tank tread and one for the right, which gave you incredibly precise control over your movement. Peering through that scope, you'd see this barren, polygonal landscape with a volcano in the distance and a crescent moon hanging in the sky. Your radar would ping with incoming enemies, slow tanks, faster super tanks, and annoying flying saucers. And don't forget those friggin' missiles. The mission was simple: hunt or be hunted. It's hard to put into words what it felt like to play Battlezone for the first time when I was a little kid. For so many of us, it was our first real taste of a 3D video game, and the sense of actually being there was just off the charts. The minimalist vector graphics somehow made the world feel more solid and real, forcing you to fill in the details with your imagination. Stalking an enemy tank, lining it up in your crosshairs, and watching it explode into a shower of geometric bits was so incredibly satisfying. I really love when the missiles were coming in on you, and you hit them at the last instant, right there, point blank range. That was so cool. It was a huge hit, and its influence was massive. It's widely seen as one of the most important ancestors of the first-person shooting genre. In fact, the tech was so impressive that Atari was actually contracted by the U.S. Army to build a modified version called the Bradley Trainer to help train gunners on their new fighting vehicles. A game so advanced that the military wanted a piece of it. That's how you know you've got a classic. For its groundbreaking technology and a sense of immersion that was second to none, Battlezone is my number 2. Hey everybody, just want to jump in real quick and say thank you for watching. If you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. It really helps me out. It doesn't take you but a second. It doesn't cost you a penny. And if you are enjoying my stuff and you haven't subscribed, I'd be grateful if you would consider subscribing to my channel. All right. Oh, and share the video. Okay, let's go ahead and get back to this countdown. Before we get on to the number 1 game, I thought there was one other game that should be mentioned, and that is Missile Command by Atari. Now, to be honest, I didn't play Missile Command a lot at the arcade when I was a little kid. The 3 little red buttons that you had to pick for the silos, I would get flustered, and I just wasn't very good at it. Now, on the Atari 2600, it was one of my favorites. I played the hell out of it, but I've got to say, this was one of the coolest sounding games in the arcade. I mean, this was one of those ones that it seemed like you would hear in the background, with all the noise jumbled up. You had a few games that kind of stood out, and this one with all the chaos going on, the explosions and the little, it looks like a UFO or something, and then that jet that comes across. It's just fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. The sound effects are just incredible in this game. But I thought it should definitely be mentioned in here because it's a classic. And at number 1, we have Star Castle by Cinematronics. Another vector graphics-based game and released around October of 1980. This game was a strategic and visual standout. In an arcade packed with the blocky, colorful sprites of raster graphics, the sharp, glowing lines of vector games always felt like the future, and Star Castle was one of the coolest looking ones out there. The concept is pretty simple. You pilot a little ship, and your job is to destroy a big energy cannon in the middle of the screen. The only problem is the cannon is protected by a set of rotating concentric energy shields. To even get a shot at the core, you have to blast holes through each layer one piece at a time. If you try to blast too many on the outer layers, they rebuild themselves. It's something you just have to kind of get the hang of when you play the game. The rings spin at different speeds and in opposite directions, making it a constantly shifting puzzle. You couldn't just mash the fire button. You had to be patient and time your shots perfectly to create an opening. What I always loved about Star Castle is the way it builds tension. While you're slowly chipping away at the outer shield, the cannon is spawning these little drone mines that come right for you. You're constantly juggling offense and defense, dodging these things while trying to carve out a path. And then once you finally break through the last ring, the whole game changes. The cannon in the middle is now totally exposed, and it can fire a massive deadly shot straight at you. It turns into this frantic one-on-one duel that you've been working toward the entire time. The legacy of Star Castle is pretty fascinating too. The game was so tough and its design so unique that when Atari tried to make a version for the Atari 2600, they realized it was basically impossible to replicate on the hardware. So instead of just giving up, the designer Howard Scott Warsaw took the core ideas, a shielded enemy and a free-flying ship, and turned them into one of the most beloved games on the console, Yar's Revenge. For its strategic depth, its gorgeous vector look, and its accidental influence on a console classic, Star Castle is a true cult classic and my number one pick. One thing I would like to add to this, and I mentioned it in the Missile Command segment a little while ago, was that during this time, not even in 1980, you could go back, I think Asteroids came out in 79, Space Invaders was 78 maybe, or 79, but all from there, all the way through the good part of the early 80s, the sound effects in these arcade games were so friggin' badass. I mean, it really just built the tension up when you were playing the game. And what I want to do real quick is just play a few seconds from a few of them without me talking, and turn them up so you can hear them. It just really was so friggin' awesome. Let's go ahead and do this real quick.
Attack the humanoid.
Intruder alert, intruder alert. The humanoid must not escape.